problem. So let me get this, swap down to stop, double click. And there it is. Poor man. All right, man. She's going to be mad. Why did you not do that? All right, so. Society of pleasure. Today we're going to talk about something me and Ms. Tiki talked about after class. And Ms. Tiki said, I really don't have a problem with entertainment. Now, food, that's a whole other ballgame. And I said, Ms. Tiki, you're exactly right. Because guess what next week is? We're actually going to talk about the idea of food and how food... And you still showed up. You knew it was coming and you still showed up. But we're going to talk about the idea of food being a problem. All right. So, my next slide, and these are just some... Got this thing over. All right. And my next slide here talks about that 117 billion is the number that we need to wrap our minds around for a second. And that's the amount of money that Americans every year spend on just fast food. $117 billion. And that usually averages about $1,200. Now, I understand you have to eat. I got it, okay? But $1,200 per person per year in that. American Center for Disease Control says that 68% of Americans are overweight and a third are considered obese. You can go to Walmart and find that out. I don't have to give you a statistic that. But let me take this the opposite way. And this is not just picking on people that have problems with weight. This also goes to people who have their obsession with health and the obsession with appearance and with working out and all the different things that go with that. So food, working out and all those things, and in the consumption of food can all be a problem and can be a very big problem. Now, me personally, I've mostly dealt with the last part there. Not that I'm in great shape now, but that was one of my big things in high school and in my 20s was working out. That's what I enjoyed doing. And if you've known me for a long time, there's a larger version of me, and then you have this new Randy. I got a picture of my old self on the fridge, and I said, that's old Randy, this is new Randy. Like I was supposed to be on some kind of it. Anyway, we'll talk about all. I got tons of fat jokes I used to get all the time when I was a much larger, bigger person. And so anyway, so it's a problem for me. Now, me personally, my life, my thing wasn't entertainment. My life was food. Okay? My goal in life, not your goal, doesn't matter. My goal in life was to be 600 pounds. That's not a big deal to you. That was a big deal to me. That's what I wanted to do in my 20s. That was my goal. And everything I did surrounded that. My work, my sleep, everything. A matter of fact, Danny would joke about how many protein shakes I would fix while we're traveling. Stop at a gas station, filling up with gas, mixing my shake on top of the gas pump, shaking it up and drinking it as we go. I eat like a baby. I was on a 2-hour schedule, usually consumed about 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, so you can take this to the extreme. And then the good Lord in about 2006 decided to bless me with a bacterial infection. And so I lost about 65 pounds in about 6 weeks. And all that hard work that took me 10 years to put on and to get strong and all that stuff, all disappeared within just 6 weeks. I went from 265 pounds to 200 pounds, and I could barely do the bar. And I was measuring the 5s. Not a big deal if you're not into powerlifting. It's okay. But what I want to understand is it can become a big deal. Anything that we talk about and anything we will talk about can become your focus. And you don't think food would be a focus, but it is. We took the word fellowship and we added what to the back of it? Meal. We very rarely talk about the idea of fellowship with other Christians, but we talk about, I hear fellowship meal probably used more than I do fellowship by itself. And everything that we do does what? It's consumed around, and no pun intended with the word consumed, but has something to do with the idea of food. Every time we get together, everything we do, every event that you put on as a college minister, as a youth minister, or whoever, is around food. Because I have to feed you to get you to go rake leads for old ladies. I have to feed you to get you to show up on campus to study the Bible. I have to trick you into doing that. I have to dangle pizza in front of you to get you to come to it. And I understand the inconveniences of eating and that kind of stuff. But that's what we have to do because that's what you're around. And you're not going to go to somebody's house. Let me go ahead and real quick. My she's not watching this. One thing, let me tell you this. So, when I was in the weightlifting stage and all about what I eat and consume, and I eat good, healthy food, my mother would call me and invite me over to eat. And my next question was, what are we having? And if she said this, I was like, no, I'm good. I'll catch you some other time. I'm not driving 20 minutes to eat a hot dog. It's just not going to happen. I don't know about y'all. If you want to have me over, don't have me over for hot dogs, okay? Maybe that's a luxury in some other country. To me, it's like, and then the pink ones, too. They're not even the good real ones. So, I mean, how do you sleep without charging for doing that thing? But anyway, so we're talking about food here. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is food is not bad in and of itself. We have to have it, but if you saw on Facebook Guide, there's a little cartoon called, I think it's Over the Hedge is the name of it, and all the little rodents are outside talking. They're talking about the people inside the house and how they all like to eat. They worship the table and all this stuff. But anyway, you get a chance to watch it. It's really a cute little clip. But in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29 through 30, of course, this is the instructions God's given to Adam and Eve. God says, "Behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth." Now, don't read ahead of me. "And every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be good for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life, I've given every green plant for its food." And it was so. And it was so. So Adam and Eve had access to everything they needed, and they were allowed to eat, and there's nothing wrong in that. But here's the problem that we run into, and this is anything that we're talking about, not just tonight. This is anything we're talking about, is this next phase. Enjoying a good meal is not a bad thing. Okay? But when we start finding more joy in the gift instead of the giver, that's where the problem begins. Anytime we like the gift more than the giver, that's where the problem begins. And so that can be not just food, that can be anything that God has allowed us to have in our life. Whether it is material things, whether it is our kids, whether it is our spouse, whatever it is, if we start loving the gift more than the giver, that's where we stem all the way back to Matthew chapter 22, and our problem becomes God is not our everything anymore. And so that's one thing I just kind of want us to remember. One of the other things too is, I put down is, so God obviously wants us to enjoy eating because we have taste buds and we can taste different things. And so if you're like me, you can't smell, but I can still taste. I know that's amazing to some people. But and all this stuff is used to fuel our bodies. But like I said, our favorite meal, think about your favorite meal or your favorite food. Why do you enjoy your favorite food as much as you do? And the obvious answer is because we get some satisfaction out of it. With the right meal, the right type of food, in all honesty, with the right steak and the right whatever you want to call it, for me, some days, all can be right in the world for just a few moments. I don't even think about world hunger anymore because I'm full. I don't think about starving children or poverty or anything else. With the right food and the right meal, and you're all guilty of it, all is right with the world for just a few moments. And so think about this idea. For instance, say your day has been a stressful one. It could be work-related, family. You just woke up in a bad mood, or like I used to tell people, my lieutenant, he was always in a bad mood, and people would always ask me why he was that way. And I said, you know how some people have the good side of the bed and the bad side of the bed? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, his good side's pushed up against the wall. And then they go, what? Never mind. All right, anyway, I like it. That's funny. But can be in a bad mood. But most people, when they deal with their bad moods, a lot of times, they turn to some other form, and we talk about entertainment, but some people turn to food. So many Christians go home, and they treat themselves with some type of food, and it changes their mood. So instead of turning to God as the great comforter, many turn to the indulgence of food to fill them. I mean, you think about it, just riding down the road, and all the roads and all the trucks and the big 18-wheelers that ride by, they are, I mean, you can follow a DiGiorno pizza truck all the way to the grocery store anytime you want to on McFarland Boulevard. You just get behind him, he'll take you to Walmart. He is going there. They are luring you by the advertisements, and while their signs are always the most nice and most and just gigantic and trying to get your attention all the time. But that is a way for Satan, whether you realize it or not, that is a way for Satan to lure you away from God. And he does it with whatever your problem is. And we're talking about growth. And so I listed several, and by the way, that's mine in the top left. Country fried steak and gravy, mashed potatoes, homemade, can't beat. I get rid of any of that other stuff, T-bone. But food-wise, that is definitely mine. But what I want you to think about is, the big question is, and I want you to answer this, is why do we turn to comfort foods and this type of pleasure instead of turning to the quote-unquote Word of God? Why food for some of us? Not all of us. If this doesn't relate, then you just kind of sit there. But why food? Why do we turn to food to comfort us? Or am I the only person that does that occasionally? I doubt it. Huh? I like to eat. Okay. Amen. I got it. What else? That's what we grew up around. Yeah, a reward for doing well. We feed you. Not feeling well. Let's get you. Right. Okay. What else?
It's easy to get.
It's easy access to it.
That feels an immediate want, desire.
Right. But the problem with it is what? Other than it's probably not good for you, especially if you're killing that middle stuff that are in there. It's very temporary. It's very temporary. And what are we doing by doing that? By feeding that satisfaction. I'm talking about hunger pains in the morning I need to fix it up. We're getting bigger, yes. We're being less healthy, obviously. But we're also doing what? We're focusing on, we're doing immediate pleasures. And so what I want you to understand is we're talking about this idea of the heart. Immediate pleasures is the problem. It's not food. I mean, food is a particular for a lot of people. Easy access, but you got just as much access to television, most of us do. Or Netflix or whatever you have. If you're down to a computer or laptop, you still have access to something. Okay? I know people that live off a laptop. Poor Katie, I mean, her monitor may have been big as my TV, my little camera one time. But anyway, but we have access to things. And so what we're trying to get over this and try to move past this is what the real problem is. I mean, honestly, after a long day at work or some stressful event in our lives, we turn to the food and we turn to entertainment to soothe ourselves, this idea of pleasure. And so I'm going to ask a really tough question, or I'm going to make a really tough statement for you, okay? If that's what we go to, we go to these things all the time, not just food. We're talking about food tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in a second. But if we go to all these different vices or sources, maybe the real reason that we don't turn to God's Word is because we really truly don't crave it. Does that make sense? Maybe the reason we don't, I'm telling you right now, I know tons of people that turn to food to fill them gaps. Whether it's loneliness, whether it's depression, whether it's a bad day at work, whatever it is. But they're not turning to God's Word. I would say you spend more time eating than you do reading God's Word, probably. Not all of us, most of us in here. We consume more food time-wise than we do actually studying God's Word. You know? And so the question, the hard question, and that's what I'm here for, is the hard question, because I've only got like 3 or 4 more weeks of this, and y'all don't have to hear me no more for a while. Okay? So I get to have fun for the next few weeks. Another thing I wrote down is maybe the real reason that we turn to these things, these vices, these things like food, is because we don't hunger and thirst after righteousness like we're commanded to. Kind of going along the same idea, but going with that. We don't crave God's Word. We don't really, it's not really, am I wrong there? Let me ask that question. Am I stepping out on a limb I don't need to step out on? Do you think that may be a problem in the church? What do we crave? Honestly. Food's one of them. But what do we crave, really?
You got to have a hunger for the Word, too.
You got to have hunger for the Word. That's exactly right. But what do we usually have hunger for? We have hunger for food. It's a basic necessity. It's if you're like me or you like tea, you know, me and T like to eat. Both of us do at times. And we even got him a T-shirt. It says, what does it say? Meal fit for a king. Yes. King fit for a meal or something like that. Yeah. Got a crab shack one time. So this is a T-shirt. All right? But a lot of times the things we turn to are what our go-tos, what we were raised around. And that kind of scares us. It should scare us a little bit. Because what we should want to turn to is we should want to turn to the Bible. Now, I'm not saying when you're hungry, eat breakfast and we'll sit down. But what I'm saying is that should be our go-to. Because if food happens to be your go-to, it could also be something else. It could be anything. It could be television. It could be, we're going to talk about other things down the road. Second John's actually speaking next week to you. And so one of the things I want us to think about is in Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. Now we know after this has happened, and we'll get to John 6 here in just a second. But in Matthew chapter 4, verse 4, we know what's happened. Christ has started his ministry. He's out walking around calling the disciples to him. And he does what right before he's tempted by Satan? Huh? He fasts. He fasts. How many days does he fast? Anybody know? 40 days and 40 nights. Wow. 40 minutes is tough. It used to be tough for me. 4 hours is like something's wrong and we've got to change plans. We're not going on vacation. We've got to stop eating. 40 days and 40 nights. And then I want you to look at verse 4. It says that Christ there, after his 40 days and 40 nights, he is what? Tempted with what's the first thing he's tempted with? The food. And what does he say? Somebody tell me. Man should not live by bread alone, but on every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. What is Christ talking about there? Obviously, he's countering the argument with Satan, but what is he saying? Huh?
This word to feed.
Yes, he's saying what? Life is what? Life has really nothing to do with these things that you're really consumed about. And you can tempt me with this, but I understand my purpose. And then also, in Matthew 5, verse 6, he warns the people there when it says about hunger and thirst. It says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." So let's go to John chapter 6 real quick. Now I'm kind of cruising along because there's something else I want to talk about tonight too, along with this idea of food. All right, so kind of an overview of chapter 6. All right, this is an amazing. I just like to sit here too. All right, but this is an amazing thing that's happened here. In the first part of chapter 6 of John, Christ has had all these people following him, and so we count the man people. They count the man, 5,000 of them guys, and that's not mentioning their wives and stuff. So estimates can be anywhere between 10 and 15,000 people have been fed by the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Now we know what happens after that. They go around, they get all the scraps up, and how many baskets were there? 12 baskets. Okay? And he gathers all these things together. And then we can kind of skip on down. Jesus walks on the water, and then he gets over, and everybody's like, "Hey, it's breakfast time. Where's Christ again?" You know, he's already on the other side, so let's head over there. So they get in their boats and they head across the other side of the water there. And then we find ourselves in verse 22 of chapter 6. So, on the next day the crowd remained on the other side, like I said, and they get boats, came near, verse 23, 24. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, they themselves got in the boats and went to Capernaum. And they looked for Jesus. In verse 25, when they found him on the other side, they said, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" And he said, "Truly I say to you, you are seeking me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not labor for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal." Verse 28. And he said to him, "What must we do to do the works of God?" And Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him who sent you." And they said to him, "Then what sign do you do that we see and you believe? Or what work can you perform? Our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to earth." And isn't that kind of interesting that just the day before, they got all they could stand out of 5 loaves and 2 fish, and today we're saying what? "Hey, let's send up a sign. I could use some pancakes." You know, I mean, that's what they're asking for. "I'd really like to have this. Hey, they fed them guys a manna out in the wilderness. I mean, we're here." Just the day before. So he obviously can tell, and he can read their hearts, but we can find ourselves in this if we're not careful. Verse 32, he says, "And Jesus said to them, Truly I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." And they said, "Sir, give us this bread." And verse 35, here it is. He says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes unto me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. But I say to you that you have seen me and do not believe, all that the Father gives me will come to me. And whoever comes to me I'll never cast out." Now let me ask you a question in verse 35. What is he talking about there, 35, 36? Obviously about himself, but what does he say? You like it? I am the bread of, come on. That's a classic. It's in red, classic passage.
He's all you need.
All you need. Is that true though? Is it true? Is it really all you need? Honestly, yes. If you're resounding question, the answer should be yes. Spiritually. But what happens? Even taking that to the next level. If I truly trust in God, he's going to provide. If he provided them people out in the wilderness who just constantly turned on him with birds and with manna and all this other stuff, he'll provide for me too. Or whether it's through the church or however some other great, wonderful thing that happens to me, he will provide. I will not go hungry. I will not have to worry about what I wear. That's when he talks about not being anxious in another passage in the Sermon on the Mount. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Do not do this, and this. Why? Because the birds don't worry about it. Everybody else doesn't worry about it. So why should you worry about it? You worry about the things of what? That are above, and everything else will be what? Taken care of. Because it goes back to what? Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, which is one of our favorite quoted passages, which is what? Huh? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So let me ask you a question. The way you're living your life currently, we're kind of off food here, but we're going to go right back to it. Is that what you're doing? Are you seeking the kingdom first and not worrying about everything else? Let me go ahead and tell you right now, one of the hardest things and the things that I'm dealing with personally in my life right now is everybody else worrying me to death about stuff. When I'm doing my best not to worry and not to have anxiety. Okay? And so what I want us to think about is if we're truly seeking the kingdom and if we're trying to push the church as far as we can, and that is our focus, then what else is going to happen? Kids are going to turn out okay. House is going to get paid for it eventually. It may take a few extra years. He may get to retire, he may not. Danny may be working until he's 90. But who knows? I may retire twice before he gets to. But stop having kids, Danny. It works. But anyway, not her. That right there. That's deep. That's deep. Only because we're neighbors. But anyway, but that's what we're talking about here. It's talking about the important things. And so Christ is referring to this idea of this bread, Him being the bread. And so the other thing, let's go down to verse 47. It says, truly I say to you, whoever believes has eternal life. And then he repeats it again. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven. 51, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. And then here's where it gets confusing on some of these people that are following him in verse 53. Truly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink His blood, you have no life in you. Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life and will raise up on the last day. For my flesh is true food and my blood is true drink. Whoever feeds, verse 56, feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me and I in him. And so a little bit later after that, after he talks about this, he kind of cuts his crowd down. He's got thousands, 15,000 people following him. But when he starts talking vampire style stuff here about cannibalism sounding, to a lot of them, they're like, hey, we're out of here. Like, he's not doing any more of those. We're not having any more bread. Let's go. And he's down probably just to a few, to 12, maybe a few more. All right? And so sometimes I think it's hard for us, too, to realize that if He is our true birth, if He is the bread of life, and we talk about that, He is our salvation, but I think we want our cake and eat it, too. No pun intended with our food source here. But we're focused on tons of things. Let me ask you a question. Now, if you know this, if you don't, I don't really know it either. I'm just asking a question. To be good at something. In other words, if you want to be good at a guitar, playing the guitar or violin, or if you want to be good at something, what do you have to do? You have to practice. And you have to do what? You have to devote a lot of time to whatever that is that you want to be good at. But what if you tried to learn about 40 different instruments at the same time? Who suffers? Every instrument. You just think it all 40. Okay? Well, the kingdom works the same way. If we're focused on everything else in this world, the kingdom is the one that suffers. Obviously, it can continue on without us, but that's what happens a lot of times. Is we need to focus on that one task that we have, and that's to seek the kingdom first. And that's what we're going to get good at. We have great opportunity here before long. We're going to move from this building to another building. And that's huge amounts of opportunity that can come with that. Whether we take advantage of it or not is up to us. That's kind of a plug there, Clark. I don't know if you want to do that or not. But anyway, that is an opportunity for us to reach out to, like we've never evangelized before, like we've never reached out before, to really get on task, quit worrying about the grub that we're eating and all the other little things that we're doing, and our vices, and letting all those vices go, and focusing on the kingdom once and for all. You don't have to have lessons like this. We can talk about other things. But that's what we need, and that's what's needed. Now, a couple things here. Obviously, Christ wanted them to see what He saw. He knows with the big picture. That's one of the things that obviously amazes us about Christ. But Christ sees the big picture. He knows what heaven looks like. He's trying to describe it to us all the time, but He's been there, done that. I've seen it. And I'm trying to tell you guys, whatever you're worried about is not worth it, because this is where I'm from, and this is where you're all going to get to go. That Father's house, building mansions, all that things. He knows all that stuff. And so He's outside of our brain power, and He's trying to steer us toward that. And He's doing the same thing with here. He's trying to tell these people to accept physical food as it's needed, but to focus our attention on the spiritual food, and that will help us all the way around, eternally, obviously. He wanted them to have the kind of passion for filling their souls. Think about the people that love to eat. We just said it a second ago. He wants us to have the same passion that we have for our favorite food. He wants us to have that same passion for the Word of God. He wants us to be, whatever your favorite food is, if you like Cheesecake Factory and you can't wait to get by there one day on 280, even though the crowds is crazy, you can't wait and you think about, I can't wait to get. He wants you to have that type of desire about His Word. Talk about that second, about that little black book in the bottom. That's what he wants. And everything that we deal with is the counter to that. Okay? Is everything in here, on this picture and any other pictures, of anything that I could possibly bring up, is trying to get you away from that book. And until we realize that, whatever it is, we're talking about entertainment and other things last week, then a lot of our problems, I think, will cease. And so what he's talking about is Christ discovered the truth of what he had taught them back on the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, it says, Christ teaches them not to worry because life is more than food, obviously. And he wants them to focus on that. So he tells them something he can't see, but he describes himself as that bread. The day came on, and obviously something to eat. So my question we ask ourselves tonight, and this is kind of a short version of comfort foods, because I can't really go too in depth about your favorite food, and you need to get a hold of it. But is Christ really enough in your life? That's the biggest question. We're going to jump into something else in just a second. I don't know if he is sometimes, and here's why I say that. At that moment, many people stopped believing him. They wanted their bellies full. And sometimes I feel like that's the reason a lot of us follow Christ at times. It's because we want what? We want the benefit package that goes with it, don't we? Let me ask you a question, and here's a tough one. I like this question. What if everybody in this room, what if I knew this and I could tell you this, what if everybody in here, if you became a Christian, and you are, but I told you this before you became a Christian, or even I could tell you right now, for sure, I was able to see it somehow, that everyone in this room would die a horrible death because you became a Christian, would you still be a Christian? I mean, really? What if everybody in this room, if somehow I knew this, and you knew this too, and I was able to confirm this with you, that you're going to die the worst death that you could possibly imagine, if you became a Christian and you were a follower of Christ, would you still be a Christian today? Because I thought about this the other day. Think about Paul, for instance. Do you think Paul would have got a thorn in the flesh if he would have been a follower of Christ? You ever wondered that? You know, a lot of people say it's blindness and other problems he's had. Do you ever feel like he may have not ever had that problem if he had never followed Christ in the first place? I believe it. I truly believe he probably wouldn't have the problem. Why? Because who's he give credit to it for? Satan. Satan sent this to me. I asked God to take it. God said my grace is good enough to deal with it, pretty much. That's Rennie's translation. So a lot of things that we're dealing with in our life, I take it just like that. Maybe this is my tribulation. Maybe this is my problem that I'm running into right now. Because I'm trying to do what's right. And when I get there, I'll ask him. But we're off food a little bit, but I want you to understand that's the kind of commitment God's asking from us. And I'll continue to say that over and over and over. And it's kind of a scary thought if you think about it. So the big question is, back to food. What power does food have over us? What power does it have? I'm going to tell you right now, it has more power than you realize. Let me tell you why. What is the least talked about subject in the churches of Christ ever preached from a pulpit that has to do with food? Fasting. Am I right? How many of you, and I've been a Christian probably about 30, 25, something like that years, have heard a lot of sermons from the pulpit about fasting? I went to Northport and here one. The only 3 that I've heard, I taught 3 of them. Why is that? Now, we're not going to go into it too in-depth on fasting, but I was supposed to talk about this summer and didn't get to because of time's sake. But fasting is what? It's denying ourselves. That's exactly right. So think about this. If I asked you to, tomorrow, we're all going to fast and we're going to take off for 3 days. Oh, excuse me. Wrong way. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm so sorry. This is newfangled technology out here. But one of the hardest things, and we talked about this last week when I said something about the Auburn fast and Iron Bowl, about not watching, and that's the type of fast. You know, the idea of fasting is a very neglected subject, and we're going to talk about it just for a minute. Because I don't want to get kicked out of the church just yet. But anyway, it says, in many religion have exalted religious fasting beyond what the Bible teaches, obviously. Christians may fear sometimes that fasting will make them appear fanatical, associated with them with some type of false religious group or whatever. But it does touch a very dear subject to us. And I think that's the biggest problem we have, is because of food, because of the overindulgence that we have with food. It's counterculture. in a very food-oriented place, and we live in a very food-oriented society. I get to the land of the golden arches, like I wrote. We do not eat to live, but we live to eat. That's what we enjoy doing. My wife loves Home and Garden television. She's probably her amen right there from her couch. She loves it. But let me tell you what everybody on that show likes on Home and Garden. That kitchen better be big. And it better have an island. I don't know the deal with the islands, but they all got to have islands in their little name. And open concepts. I mean, I've never seen a place that just wants to be able to see the bathroom in the back. Just walking. But anyway, side note, Home and Garden. But they all want what? I don't want no cramped kitchen. Them countertops is from the 90s. You better give me another. I don't mind spending 20 grand on your countertop. Give me something else I can lay my food on. Is that what, I mean, am I lying? I'm talking about 50, 60, 70 grand on a kitchen. On a kitchen. House ain't worth 100,000. They got 50,000 in the kitchen. Why? Because that is our altar. That is, food has become that big a deal to us. And where's the other altar at? It's in the living room because the TV's mounted on the wall and everything in the living room surrounds it. So it's like an island. Okay? I'm not joking. I'm serious. I don't have that big of a house myself. But, so some ignore, back to the subject because they seem unnecessary or very traditional. So let me just quickly, Kelly, you got to leave on this. Now, come on, let's talk about fasting. What is the Bible? That's just rude. I don't know. He's going outside. What does the Bible teach about fasting? I'm out of here. So look at this. Let me show you the who's who of people who fasted. Moses, Daniel, David, Anna, Elijah, Esther, Jesus, obviously, and then Paul. And here's something I found very interesting. There is more teaching in the New Testament on fasting than repentance and confession mentioned. Fasting is mentioned more than repentance and confession. Jesus himself taught more on fasting than on baptism and taking the Lord's Supper. Okay? Oh, you're going to start throwing stuff now. Look at this. So what is it? So biblical definition is a voluntary absence from food or for spiritual purposes. It's voluntary because fasting is not being pushed into it or a natural loss of appetite. It's, just a loss of appetite. I don't feel like eating. And that is a form. But the length can go from a single day, from sunrise to sunset. After sundown, the food can be taken. So let me show you something real quick. Y'all will love this. Matthew chapter 6. Real quick. Now, I thought fasting would be very good with talking about food. I mean, it just kind of goes hand in hand. I just got you in. Matthew chapter 6. Let's see where I'm at. There he goes. Now, obviously, let's look at 16. It says, and when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites. It's Christ, it's in red. For they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head, wash your faces, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but your Father who's in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward in secret. Nothing you've never seen before. But what I want you to do is to jump back just a little bit to the beginning part of chapter 6. I don't necessarily think it's maybe up there. Yeah, I have a little bit up there. In verse 2 of chapter 6, it says, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you. Anybody heard that passage? And that's the passage that we refer to as what? You need to do what? You need to give. When you give. Verse 5 of chapter 6. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues at the street corners that they may be seen. And when you pray, verse 7, do not heap empty phrases. Now see if you see any correlation into this. Verse 16. And when you fast. So there's not an if there. He's assuming what? That you would be doing this.
And if there's a right way to do it.
And then obviously, yeah, we're yes, and there's right. It's just like there's a right way to pray. There's a right way to live. We know that. We talk about the publican stand on the street. In the tax collector, and the Pharisee. But you're exactly right. There is a right way to do it. But so why is it not talked about a lot though? I've heard lots of lessons on prayer. I've heard lots of lessons on giving. I know you have. But let's just be honest. Why do we not hear a lot of lessons other than tonight? Why do we not hear a lot of lessons on the idea of fasting? And maybe I've already answered. Why do you think? Somebody tell me.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. What else? Huh? You gotta deny yourself. Part of that, take up your cross, deny yourself, take up the cross and follow me kind of thing. Goes along with that. What else you think?
I think it comes down to how much are we truly willing to sacrifice what we want.
Why did they fast in the Old Testament? We didn't have time, just for time's sake, to hit in the Old Testament too much. Why did they fast during the Old Testament? Anybody remember different ideas?
Daniel fasted to show that God is mightier than the king.
All right. Who else? Anybody else remember anybody? Nehemiah fasted in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4. Because of why? Because he was in such distress of what? The state of Jerusalem.
David fasted when his son was sick.
Right. David fasted when his son was sick. Ezra led a fast when he was seeking the favor of God to return from exile. The Jews fasted several times for different reasons. Esther fasted for 3 days and 3 nights.
Didn't Nineveh fast?
Nineveh, the entire animals. They didn't even get the choice. They even fasted. So the point of fasting was what? For distress and to do what? Not that you're going to win your way back in, which, I mean, Ezra tried. What was the other reason? To refocus. To do what? To deny myself the very basic necessity of my life. And to say, God, I need to hear from you. Whatever you need me to do, I'm going to deny myself the very basic thing in this life. We have problems with it, but we really have a problem with doing without it. And so think about a couple of things that go with that. Like I said, obviously, there I have in Matthew 16, I lost my slides here on myself. He talks about it himself, Christ does. He also, John's disciples, are a question that Jesus described the time when the disciples will fast. In Matthew chapter 9, verse 14 to 15, it says, the disciples of John came to him and said, why do we and the Pharisees fast so often, but your disciples do not fast? And Jesus said to them, can the friends of the bridegroom mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away, and they will fast. So Jesus there indicates what? He indicates that the appropriate time to fast is when? After he's left. That's why they're not fasting now. So he's not here, by the way. I mean, he isn't here in spirit, obviously. But the bridegroom is gone, waiting on him to return. And so Jesus also taught other things. In the King James Version of Matthew 17, verses 14 through 21, it says, and when they had come to the multitude, a man came to him, kneeling down, Lord, have mercy on me. Verse 16, so I brought him to your disciples. They said they could not cure my son, who suffers from epileptic seizures. And Jesus answered, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. Jesus rebuked the demon and came out. The child was cured. Verse 19, the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, why can we not cast this out? And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, for unsurely I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Verse 21 in the King James translation says, however, this kind of faith does not go out except by prayer and by fasting. And so we can look at different churches. The church in Antioch in Acts chapter 13, verses 1 and 3. They're getting together who? All these different teachers and other stuff. And in verse 2 it says, and they ministered to the Lord and fasted, and the Holy Spirit said, now separate to me Barnabas and Saul from the work to which I've called them. And so verse 3, then having fasted and prayed, they laid their hands on them and sent them away. A couple characteristics that I got there. They're fasting as a group. They fasted and prayed in preparation for Barnabas and Saul to be called out. And so they need, obviously, fasting accompanied prayer and done as a group, as a whole thing, not necessarily as an individual thing. Not necessarily, we don't know if they called and said, hey, everybody fast, but if they did, that was okay within reason to do that, I feel. Then Acts 14, 21 through 23, the church in Galatia. I just got like a minute also fasting. And then Paul also talks about it as well. And so the question is, when we talk about the idea to fast or not to fast, that is the question. Kind of Shakespearean there. But I'm not asking you to do or do without something. In other words, what's holding you down that you can't let go? Talk about entertainment. Talk about football and sports and anything else. Golfing, I don't care. Whatever you want to put in there. But what's got a bind on you? What can you not let go? In other words, whatever if I knew what your favorite thing was and I said, hey, this year I need you I feel like I can tell you're really pulled that way. You know, as a brother in Christ, I feel like you've been pulled that way. It may be something you need to consider letting go. You would almost chew my head off if I made that phrase. Why? Just like the iron bow fast, you don't want to do it. Because you ain't got to, evidently. And so I'm asking you, when we think about this, I'm talking about fasting. Jesus said when, not if. He taught disciples how to fast. He referenced the time when his disciples would fast. There are examples of fasting in the New Testament church. And so the thing we have to think about, and they were facing appointing elders. Why would we not be with big decisions? Building coming up. Future elders. Big decisions the church has to make as a whole. That not be appropriate. If we're commanded, like I said, to imitate Paul, as he imitated Christ, Paul did as well.
I think that's a big part of it, Brother Ed. When you first started talking about it, my mind went to foot washing as a similar.
Of course.
And the reason I'm saying that is because it's easy for our religious world to have taken those things that
Right.
were done in Scripture for purpose, and we've made it almost ceremonial.
Yeah, and here's one thing real quick. Let me go ahead and tell you where we're messing up a lot of times, in my opinion. Just because somebody else is doing it, don't necessarily mean it's wrong that we do it. If our Christianity is based off of what everybody else don't do, then we're in trouble. That makes sense. That's a lot deeper than fasting.
Well, really, everybody should know somebody's doing it, if it's done the right way.
Right. And there should be, and we'll go that with giving and with prayer and anything like that. But what we have to be leery of is we never talk about it. It's a faux pas. It's almost a curse word within itself. Oh, fasting, people draw up. Or we say, oh, that's just for whoever. And let's be honest, how many of us have purposely went without food? I'm not talking about because you skipped the meal or you're stressed out, but said, hey, I need to refocus on what God wants me to do. And today I'm not eating the thing.
And part of it, Andy,
So, boss.
is being steady. You know, when you talk about hungering, you know, how do you hunger and thirst for God's Word? To me, it's, you know, the plug being a daily Bible reader.
Right.
Somebody shared with me a great concept. They were talking about the manna. You know, God gave them enough manna every day to where everybody had enough. Nobody had too much. Nobody had too little. And it's kind of like us. If you'll get after God's Word, He's going to give you what you need. But the key is you got to do something. You got to pick it up. And again, if you pick it up steadily every day, you will develop a hunger. But if you
And
try to
I think
pick it
so
up
too.
randomly,
I think also, and you're exactly right, I think it develops into something that we do, but I'm going to be honest with you, I think it boils down to our chest and what's going on inside our heart. Because you'll do with the things you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think it's good to be nice to widows and orphans. But if I really ain't got a heart for it, I'm not going to do it. I mean, and I agree with you on definitely Bible reading, definitely need to be in the habit and the practice, and that's constantly, and it will feed us. But I think we need to really, at the core, crack it open and say, something's wrong if I'm not wanting God's Word over everything else. That makes sense.
I'm afraid it's tough to crave what you've never had. So if you've never really embraced
Right.
hungry and thirsting after righteousness,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you appreciate
You're exactly right. So how do we fix that? You got a guy standing behind a podium right here and says, hey, look, you need to crack your chest open and figure out where your hearts are and get on the ball. That's one thing. But what else? That's in our teaching from when they're little. We've talked about that before, guys, and I know you got to go because that guy's going to come and ask when we're done yet. But we talked about that before about our young people know what our desire is, and they know what our hearts are about, and they know what we like, and they know what we crave. And if God's Word ain't one of them, and it ain't number one, then you're exactly right. Then they'll never crave. If they like vacations, they'll never leave vacations. You know, that's a bad reference, but that's kind of the way I envision it. And so what we have to do is, yes, we fix everybody? No. But can we fix you? Can you fix you? Yes, you can. You can ask God to help fix you. You can ask God tonight in your prayer before you lay your head on the pillow to say, whatever it is that's standing between me and you, because there is something, crack it open and let's move on and let's move past this, and I'm ready. That's your choice. I can't do that for you. If it's food, that's one thing. That's just one little small minor thing. We're going to get some heavy stuff here for long. But I appreciate keeping you over a few minutes. I apologize. But this is really something I feel like as a church we have opportunities to grow just several weeks from now. But if we're just going through the motions and we're not hungry and thirsting after righteousness, it don't matter where we move, how big it is, we'll never get the people in that we want if our heart's not right. I just kind of thought process thinking. So thank you. Good to see everybody. And if you want to dismiss. Bye, Manny.